You're listening to Generation AI
from LivePerson.
Hi, and welcome to Generation AI. I'm Joe Bradley, and I'm joined by Ruth Zive, my co-host, and it's a pleasure for both of us to be speaking today with Jeff Cotton and Darrell Kelly. Jeff is the CEO at Alvaria, and Darrell is the company's Chief Strategy Officer. Get ready to go deep with them about how AI affects employee and customer experiences, and what we need to do as leaders in AI to keep experimenting and to do so responsibly. Before we officially welcome our guests, though, we'd like to play a one-of-a-kind piece of AI-generated content that our team created special for Jeff and Darrell.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Get excited.
Yeah, let me tell you about Jeff and Darrell, no dispute. Alvaria's leaders, both sharp and astute. Jeff Cotton's the CEO, driving the pursuit. Darrell Kelly, CSO, success they'll execute. Jeff's the Texas guy, with that Austin flair. From Hewlett-Packard to Rackspace, he's been there. Darrell's background diverse, like a vivid stream. Board member, founder, achieving the dream. Outside the office, they live in the groove. Jeff strums guitars, Darrell soccer smooth. So here's to Jeff and Darrell, a dynamic pair, leading Alvaria with a flair so rare.
There you go.
Wow.
There we go. The flair so rare. I love it.
I like that. That's
great. The flair so rare. The flair. So a little weird, but kind of cool also that we were able to create all of that just from AI.
Ruth, may I ask why you say weird?
I don't know. Maybe I've listened to too many of these already, having done several of these podcasts. It always seems a little cringy to me, but if you don't think it's weird, then I'll try to have a more open mind. Did you not find it weird?
Oh, I think it's beautiful. I think it's an amazing example of how human and machine can really be in the loop to make experiences more personalized, right? Like if I'm an agent and I heard that little prompt right before a call, hey, talk to Jeff about, UT or whatever that may be, start off there. Oh my goodness, do you know how disruptive that would be? And I think that's one of those components where we're still trying to navigate through what is AI? How do we apply it? What are the use cases? And so I think the more that we can put it in a box and make it tangible and make it applicable to our lives, the more that we will adopt it, both as employees and as consumers in the world. So I may challenge, not weird. I think it's beautiful, that example.
Love it. I love that. And we're going to get
I love what Darrell just said, but come on, I'm with you. It's a little it is. It's a little weird.
Well, look, I think we can agree that if somebody put us on the spot and said, hey, here's Darrell and Jeff, here's a couple of facts about them, go ahead and write a rhyming poem, like that, we would not be able to do that. So I would do worse than the AI at creating the cringy poem. But if I were to create this poem, I would consider it cringy.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad.
Imagine what Darrell just said. Like, think about it if you're at a party. This would have come in handy for me this past weekend. And like, you've got these little AI glasses and it's seeing the room and it's telling you, hey, Ruth is this unbelievable expert in this and she likes that. And like, go up and ask her about this. I mean, that would be amazing, actually.
Yeah, it's like the president earpiece, right? Where he's got it and
exactly.
They're telling him who all the officials are and he knows them all gracefully. That I think there's a real use case there.
Yeah. Well, I love that this poem right out of the gate has sparked some debate, and we're going to pull that through this conversation as we get into some of the nitty gritty. But before we do this, Darrell and Jeff, why don't you each introduce yourselves to our audience so they just have a little bit more context on who you are, where you come from, what Alvaria does, and then we can kick off the conversation.
I'll start off because Darrell will just lift it all up at the end anyway. So once again, Joe, thank you for the intro. Jeff Cotton. I am the CEO at Alvaria currently. Been there a little over a year and a couple of months now. We all met, obviously, because I was at LivePerson for a brief minute after we exited Tenfold, and LivePerson acquired Tenfold, which was a integration software in this contact center space that integrated CRMs with CCaaS platforms. And prior to that, as Joe mentioned, I was at Rackspace for a long time. And really the way I found myself in this contact center space is Rackspace is really nothing but a big contact center. We would have never have ever admitted that because we were very cool and unique in how we delivered our service. But it was a big customer service center is all it was. And I had a lot of passion around how we delivered service, but then also how to use technology to improve that customer service experience. which is sort of what took me into this space. So that's a little bit of me and my background. Darrell, over to you.
Thanks. Yeah. And so, Darrell, my friends will call me DK. So, if we're friends and we catch up after this conversation, send a message with DK. It'll put a smile on my face. I run strategy at Alvaria as one of many roles in my career right now. I'm also founder of a productivity tool startup called Moxie, as well as I sit on a few boards, both in the CX space, fintech, and in the ESG space as well. And really just, focusing on something that I've been chasing after and chasing towards since grad school is really just the intersection of how humans thrive and how organizations thrive. And so I'm really glad to be at the intersection of both of those today in this conversation as it relates to how we can leverage emerging technology to assist in that pursuit. My thesis actually in grad school was on why we fail, why humans and organizations fail. And believe it or not, there's a lot of similarities as to why humans fail and why organizations fail. And so love this space, the CX space, the interaction between brands and humans and consumers. And then, of course, us as agents, right? The people that work for brands, the intersection between me as an agent and brand as well. So love to be here. Thank you.
Great. Welcome, guys. Glad to have you on and looking forward to the conversation. I think we're all kind of in a similar business here right now, right? We're really thinking about how, contact center agents in particular and the contact center in general. I think one of the things that the mutual interest that we share is trying to think deeply about how this new technology that's come out in AI can really help change and enhance the experience of the worker in the contact center, the agent on the front line. And I feel like we just kind of scratched the surface of that with this technology so far. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on what's possible there and what excites you about really helping the worker or the agent in this environment.
Darrell, you should take that.
I think what excites me the most is it's an undefined space. It's an undefined technology. And we as technologists, we as enterprises, and even as consumers are the pioneers, right? And not only the pioneers, we will be the ones that help design the applications for this very broad technology. Both us as consumers using our consumer experience and applying that to an organization, and then vice versa, using our organizational experience and applying that to the way in which we as consumers interact with this emerging technology called artificial intelligence. So I'm excited because we get to define it. We get to harness it. We get to shape it. And there's just something beautiful and encouraging. And also there's a lot of responsibility to do it right.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you've got this completion machine, right? That's what the current generative AI and language anyway is. And it's this very flexible machine, right? But it kind of needs some context. It needs a lot in order to make it work. Do you guys have application areas you're particularly focused on right now? Are you still in, kind of in a stealth mode about that, or how are you approaching the agent experience?
Yeah, like where's the low hanging fruit, practically speaking? Like where in the near term, I agree with you, Darrell, but like in the near term, what are the practical considerations that we can make real for the agent experience?
Yeah, Darrell, I think you've got to talk about VEA. But one thing, Joe, I just wanted to highlight, you mentioned a minute ago, one thing that certainly Alvaria is focused on, and I dare say LivePerson as well, is on making the agent experience better, right? We get asked all the time, which I know we're going to talk about, and isn't generative AI just going to put what you do out of business and there's not going to be any humans in the contact center anymore? And I always just sort of laugh, which, we could talk more about later. But the truth is today, our pursuit, to your point, Ruth, is about how do we make that agent experience better? I mean, today, let's be honest, most of the tools that they're using still in the contact center, they have to, and they're not really easy. They're not actually adding value. They're not helping them give insights on the other person that they're trying to solve a problem for on the other side. And that to me is the sort of the near-term promise of AI is how do we make sure that, number one, it's listening real time in on that conversation and giving little nuggets that are helpful in the middle of that conversation that can be actioned upon. And then the other component of that is just the productivity sort of environment itself. How do we make sure that the agent then has things that it's making its interactions with the company that it's working for better? And so we've got something that's really near term that we're working called a virtual employee assist. So Darrell, why don't you tell them a little bit about what that's all about?
Yeah. And so I think if we take a few steps back, I like, Jeff, how you framed it as to what are we chasing after as Alvaria? And really what that is elevating the human experience and the way that me as an agent, I can feel connected to a consumer, and me as a consumer connected to the brand, right? I think we often forget that the agent is the face of the brand when you're in these types of interactions. In the way in which we see it, generative AI can be one of those components that is a magic maker, a differentiator for that experience. And so, yes, there are some things that are skunk works that we're bringing out long term, but as it relates directionally to the items that we're focusing on, and I think Jeff alluded to it very well in terms of virtual employee assistant. And we see that bidirectionally, meaning the way that the agent is assisted by generative AI and the way in which generative AI assists the agent and their interaction. Let me first start with the agent experience. When you think about the agent, right, they're somewhat on an island, day to day, call to call to call, right? If you've ever been an agent, whether you're a messaging agent or a voice agent, it is a very lonely job. It's a very isolating job. It's a very repetitive job. Okay. Yes, there's people sitting next to you. Yes, you have managers. Yes, you have coaches. But at the end of the day, it's you and that person on the other side. And what we often see as an agent, if you've spent hours and hours and hours delivering calls, it gets a little disengaging. Okay, where you're at call 30 for the day of the exact same topic, and the way in which you engage with that customer has eroded just a little bit. And so what we're focusing on is the continuity of the experience that agent is able to deliver. So the tools that we provide are within the workforce engagement management category. Typically, when you hear the market describe workforce engagement management, they will put it in the forecasting, time management, and adherence bucket, right? WFM, respectively. There's all the things that are surround WFM, right? Me managing and interacting with my schedule, that are useful engagement and productivity tools. And so when we think about generative AI respectively, it's helping that agent do their job more effectively and more consistently. And there's a really important piece with the consistency component. About 2017, you started to see the convergence of workforce optimization and workforce management into one categorical market. And really why those markets came together was because you have employee productivity, right? The employee productivity component, the scheduling component, but really what was underneath the employee productivity was how well is this employee doing at delivering their job? And you'd have some type of manual scoring where an agent or a manager would go through and listen to some calls, or it'd be a QA team that would listen to some calls. And really what they were listening for is compliance. How well is this agent doing against our quality standards? And so the tools in which we're bringing, and this is one example that I'll focus on right now, the tools in which we're bringing is one, to allow that quality experience to be more effective and more continuous. We shouldn't wait for a moment once a week or once every 2 weeks or once a month, or let's be honest, once the manager has time to deliver a moment of coaching or moment of feedback for an employee. We as employees, again, back to this isolation, we want to be engaged. And if we're waiting for that moment that is, hey, do you remember that call that happened 3 weeks ago? Well, I have that recording. Let me pull that recording up for you, and we're going to listen to that call, and you're going to tell me all the things that you did wrong in that call. Why didn't you give me that opportunity that same day? Or, mind you, with generative AI, real time or after the call, and give an opportunity to show a lot more empathy. Hey, Darrell, it looks like you may have been struggling through that call. Can I give you some useful tips that may help you navigate through the next 5 calls? You know what that does to the employee experience, right? I'm paying attention at scale. And it allows us, just that one use case allows us to deliver a better employee experience and a better customer experience. So that's just one use case as it relates to our virtual employee assistant. I'll pause here because there's more in that same theme. However, if you look at the box that we're putting this in, it's greater employee productivity and greater employee connectivity to the brand.
Well,
Jeff, would you have to add anything? Or yeah, go ahead, Ruth.
I was going to say that's a perfect segue, because what I wanted to ask about is, clearly there's lots of opportunity. You've shared a really compelling use case to enhance the employee experience, and by extension, the consumer experience. But what is the implication to the brand? How does this ultimately bubble up to a stronger brand reputation, stronger brand equity? Because I would imagine that that's very top of mind for the brand.
I'd say it's not, right? I mean, if you think about it, our brand's really, really paying attention to the quality of their experience. And so, and the reason I say that is to somewhat be facetious, right? Because we both work in the enterprise, and we look at the symptoms, right? The quality, the overall quality of the experience, meaning I as a brand provide a product. How am I defending that product at every single touch point? This allows us to rethink the experience more holistically instead of in fragments. And so this allows us to go, wait, where are the variations to what delivers a really great experience? And then what are the things that allow us to what are the things that are having a negative impact on that experience, right? It allows us to think differently about the value in which we provide as an organization and deliver that at scale. I think that's the most important thing, is we actually can deliver on quality at scale, right? When you pick up the phone to talk to, a Delta, a Southwest Airlines, and Apple, you want a consistent experience. That's one. Second, you want a personalized experience. And are we delivering consistent and personalized experiences at scale right now? No, it kind of depends on how I feel as an agent, or what tools I have accessible to me, or what tools the brand is putting in front of me, or what they've designed. This is what generative AI can do so effectively, is the at scale. And so it allows us to go, what are the key things that we want to protect as a brand, right? Do we want to be very conversational and make Ruth and Jeff and Joe feel really great as they walk off that call and they turn into brand advocates? Oh my goodness, I just got off the phone with Delta and they helped me with this, and it was so efficient, right? We have to think about what this can do at scale in terms of the consistency of the quality of experience that wraps around the halo of a brand.
Well, doesn't it allow the brand to establish and audit standards at scale in a more effective way, brand standards at scale in a more effective way, right? Because it's really that at scale piece that makes it really difficult to ensure that the experience is protected, or prescribed for that matter. So I like how you're putting it. I wouldn't. What I was trying to suggest is that brands care about their reputation. They care about their brand equity. And I totally agree with you that they're not shining a spotlight on the experience in the way that they should, maybe because they can't. And it sounds like what you're suggesting is that this new technology, generative AI, allows them to shine that spotlight and expose the gaps
Ruth,
and opportunities.
I thought exactly
in a
what
clear
you said
way.
was spot on.
Well, they care reactively.
What DK playfully highlighted
ahead,
is the extreme disconnect between what, say, an executive level of a brand is going to want and desire versus what the actual experience is. And I'll even relate that to our own company. When Darrell and I first got here, it was so funny. I'm going to not name the organization, but there's a whole organization that you can pay a membership due to that tells you basically how to run a contact center and a customer service operation. And what are all of their metrics focused on? Cost, productivity, call time resolutions, call avoidance metrics. I mean, this blows me away. In our industry that is customer service, we're talking about how to avoid a call, basically, right? Versus what you're talking about, which is what most executives want, right? Is for their end customer to have an amazing experience and interaction with their brand. And that's where I think AI becomes so exciting and interesting, right? Because hopefully, number one, we're going to provide tools that are going to make the agent's ability to give a much better experience to that end consumer on the side, so that they can actually give a good brand experience, but also help start to automate some of the trivial tasks so that a human doesn't frankly have to get on and answer the same thing 30 times a day. That stuff gets handled through AI and automation. And now actually a brand and an executive can say, I still want to employ a big human contact center, but I want them to do the delighter kind of stuff, right? This is what made Rackspace so special in its early days. We used to preach and talk about find ways that you can deliver delighter experiences to your customer, because that's what's going to help them forget all the mess, because stuff's going to break and stuff's not going to work right. And that's how you can flip their mindset to a customer that comes in angry, upset about something, you solved a really complex thing, and then you found a way to delight them in some way. And that's where I think the humans are going to gradually over time start to shift their focus and where they're spending their time as the AI starts to handle the more trivial tasks, so that the human then can really create that differentiated brand experience.
Yeah, I think it's easy to forget, or it's powerful for brands to realize that every customer
That's right.
service conversation is a brand marketing event, whether you like it or not. Right? Whether you do it well or you do it poorly, your brand's on the line every time, and people remember that very, very well. And I think that's where the scale decay that you mentioned comes in. It is a scale operation. It is a scale brand marketing operation. Whether you believe it or not, it just happens to happen one person at a time.
Right.
Do you guys have some success stories or some examples where AI's kind of made a difference in either the employee experience or the customer satisfaction? Like what are you kind of racking up here?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about the employee side of the experience. We've got great tools that are coming out as early as next year, and I'll talk about the impact of how that, excuse me, the anticipated impact on the customer experience. But as it relates to the agent experience, the tools that we've deployed so far, specifically on the virtual employee assistant, which will continue to evolve. We're using basic things like deconstructing what it means to interact with my schedule, what it means to interact with the brand as a whole. And so what we've done is we've brought an entire conversational experience to the agent, where they don't have to necessarily interact with an interface to move their schedule, to change their schedule. And then on top of that, with really, really great intersectionality to their lives. Things like, hey, Darrell, looks like you have a birthday next week. Would you like to take that off? And it's AI that's paying attention to me as a human, and making it much easier for me to interact with the way in which I manage my schedule, and the way in which I interact with the brand from a performance point of view. So like I've been alluding to, that's the second use case that we've been putting a lot of focus on, is summarization. What we've seen as highly effective with summarization is we see it in three modalities: before, during, and post. And so before a call, we've been talking about that before call experience, right? That's everything that happens, from a life of an agent, whether that's a scheduling issue or that's information about a client or a customer. That's the before experience. During experience, we have tools that I'm not quite ready to talk about right now. I think we should come back to this conversation early next year, where we could talk about some exact use cases on the during experience. But then the post call or post interaction experience, right, where we spend so much time navigating. Okay, well, let me do after call or after interaction work, right? All the work that happens after I'm done talking or interacting with a consumer, right? I'm leaving notes on the account. I'm taking actions on the account. I'm sending out emails or setting up a work, whatever that may be. There is a lot of time. Call that 30 to 40% of an agent's day is spent in after call work. And I know that sounds like a very exaggerated number. It's not. You go into a call center and you say, where's most of your time being spent? It's after call work. Now, some agents manipulate that and they like to use that time to take a little bit of an extra break, but you're going to see a lot of inefficiencies happening just in that after call experience or that after interaction experience. And so what we're focusing on is making that much more effective for our brands. And so tools that help with the summarization, as well as a recent acquisition that we made last year of Cicero, we now have RPA, that you're taking that summarization and using an action engine on top of that summarization to say, hey, it looks like you wanted to send Joe an email. Would you like me to do that? Right? These are the type of assistive type tools that allow us to provide a more productive experience for that employee, so they can go back and do their best work.
I love those examples. So I know that as leaders, we all embrace this idea of, experimenting to learn. And I think everyone's scrambling to experiment a little bit with generative AI. I'll ask a two-part question. What are some experiments that you've both undertaken in your day-to-day work so that you can familiarize yourselves with this technology? And then what advice would you give to an executive looking to dip their toe? I think that there's a lot of energy around this new technology and a lot of fear. So what advice would you give to a leader looking to experiment and try some of this stuff?
Yeah, I'll
do
start
it in a
off
way
on
that's
that one, Darrell. Look, the first thing I frankly did was say, okay, I'm tired of hearing about ChatGPT. Let's go get an account. Let's log in. Let's try it. And I'll have to tell you, my own personal experience was probably not as, life changing as so many people love to say that it is. Like, I asked it the same 20 questions you see reported on, name your favorite news website every day. And, it's going to tell you what the price of Ethereum is by 2030 and this, that, and the other. And it doesn't answer any of those questions for me. Like, I really, frankly, can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. But, what clearly I walked away with experiencing is two things. Number one, it is really good at generating things like the poem and sort of an introduction by sort of going out and scouring the web and finding out information and then generating a story based off of that, right? Which is super interesting, right? I can completely see how all the fear around journalism and lawyers was sort of the first things were kind of reported out of it. The second thing that I walked away with, and I think this is really the crux of it to me, onto your question on advising anybody who's sort of looking at quote unquote generative AI and what does it mean, is that, look, the next generation of this stuff is really going to have to be industry specific sort of templates on top of all this generative AI, right? Organizations like ours are going to have to take the raw capability to generate things like, sophisticated stories based on fact and data and information that, a machine can cobble together and glean and put it in the context of a customer service experience, into a gambling experience, into a machine, manufacturing sort of, assembly line automation experience. Every industry is going to have to take a lot of this generative capability and figure out what is the applicable use case, right? Which is what I know our respective organizations now are trying to put together. So the first thing that I would advise is, whatever business you're in or whatever business problem you're trying to solve, is reach out to leading organizations like ours and try to understand what is real today. What are you experimenting with? What's coming in the next 3-6 months? What's coming in the next 1 to 2 years, to try to put it into context into a specific use case? Because everyone's kind of walking away today sort of asking, gosh, isn't this just going to eradicate the need for all humans doing all kinds of work, outside of maybe literally, producing something? And I think that, sure, that's coming 10 plus years down the road, but it's first going to have to start with taking specific business problems and use cases and then creating an actual industry, template on top of what this generative AI capability is.
Yeah, I like to say people have sort of come back down to earth, and the promise of the technology is still out there, but the practical applications kind of, for now at least, fall short of the promise. So I like
Absolutely.
that and love the industry orientation that you're.
So one thing that I would recommend, as to Jeff's point, is just experiment with it. Go be playful, be a child, pretend they're Lego blocks, and you're just like, oh, what do I do here? Let me ask it some fun things. But beyond that, right? I mean, there's the headlines, right? There's open AIs, right? There's the name brands that are starting to emerge of generative AI. But before you even get there, here's my challenge for anyone that's listening to this: spend a week and just ask, where am I already consuming AI in my day-to-day life? Because I think it would be very surprising how much you consume AI, right? Most of us drive a car, right? And if you've bought a car in the last 10 years, you're interacting with AI. And I don't even think that we realize that, because we call it, right? We call it autonomous drive. We give it different labels, right? How many of us have asked Siri to do something or some type of automation within our homes, right? So I think it's just about paying attention to how you're already using AI in your life, because it's going to help build a box or a mental model for you to go, okay, so it's not about disruptive revolutionary changes. It's about incremental changes, right? And then think about that first time that you interacted with that. And what'd you say? Oh, that was helpful. Oh, that was useful. I could see how this could be, useful for safety, right? I mean, let's think about just driving alone, the impact that AI has had on reducing car accidents, or the little blind spot monitoring warning that you get, right? That's a form of AI. And so that would be my first thing, is to step away from the fear of all of it, or the way that it's undefined, and just pay attention to how it is already being defined within your life, or how you're already consuming it within your life. The second piece is, you've got to ask questions. right? You've got to get curious. Once you spend time, okay, well, how did I interact with Siri or Google Assistant? Okay, how can I now apply this to my professional life, right? And you can personalize it. Can I use something to maybe help me take notes better or summarize the notes that I've taken a little bit better? Okay, now I've personalized it. Now I can think about it organizationally. What are some of the big questions or big challenges that we may have as an organization? And holding that out there, would AI fit that, help that? Could AI contribute to that? And then the experiments that we are doing as an organization as well, because I think it's equally important. Experiments, personal experiments, and then experiments as organizations. And we're fortunate enough to have some of the largest enterprise clients on the planet. And we're working very closely with a large global bank on an experiment right now. And that experiment is, how do we leverage AI, specifically generative AI, to allow our workforce our customer service workforce to be completely disrupted, meaning no longer just thinking about my customer service workforce within four walls of a brick and mortar contact center or within a BPO, or even at home, work from home or work from anywhere, but leveraging my entire workforce to potentially facilitate some of these interactions with customers. And so we have a large global bank that's now, by leveraging Alvaria technology, we are building models that's appropriately hybridizing their labor force. So we brought their entire retail branch employees, right? Because they've had to stay open for regulatory reasons, right? They have to have 7, 8 employees to staff a branch. And you multiply that times, 1,000, 2,000, that's a lot of labor that's underutilized. And so what we're doing right now is we have a really big experiment going on what does it look like to consolidate, meaning bringing brick and mortar, your typical people that are picking up messaging interactions or phone interactions, and looking at the total utilization of the individuals that deliver customer experience as one organization, thus delivering on more consistent and effective interactions with customers. So personal experiments and organizational experiments.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think, Jeff, you said it well too. There's going to be a progression here. The technology is coming. It's come with a very useful trick, but one thing it can't do is really, have this full world model that we have, that and then employees have, that kind of defines the brand and use a little bit of that higher order functioning. I just don't think that's there yet. It's still better thought of maybe more as a completion machine today. That said, we're running a little bit low on time. It's a fascinating discussion, guys, but we did want to ask our favorite and consistent ending question of you two as well. It is also a 2-part question. Part 1 is, what is something you wish you could automate? And part 2 is, what is something you would never automate?
Oh man, I was hoping you would go, because wish and never. All right, I'll go. The never is my relationship with my family. I've got 2 kids. One's a teenager. One's a very ambitious elementary aged kid named Noah. And then my relationship with my partner, with my wife. I think those type of true human interactions are something that I would never want to automate away. Even little things like sending notes to my daughter, throughout the middle of the day, or even planning a schedule with those things are fun and they're life-giving. And so anything that's life-giving to me is something that I would never want to automate away. If I could automate one thing away, it would be email. It would be great if just act as if Darrell was responding to this email and I never had to touch email again, or I got an instant summary of every single thing in my email. I mean, I think about where I spend the most amount of time, throughout my entire week. It's in email. It's in my email clients. It'd be really great.
Well, I was going to say, so for everybody out there interacts with Darrell, just beware. One day that email you think he's written you at 2:00 in the morning, it's probably going to be a bot doing it for him. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I don't think Darrell will be alone in that regard.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going
to get a workout.
I don't know what it is, but all of a sudden, it's like a 12-year-old house is falling apart. Everything around it is breaking. I got electrical problems. A door handle just flipped out on me today. And imagine we can get to that self-healing house thing, right? Where all that stuff. Number one, it self-diagnoses. It tells you, oh, here's a problem, and here's exactly what's wrong with it. Either go get this part, or we've already shipped it to you, or better yet, most of the stuff, it just like fix itself. I can't wait for that. I'm big for the Jetsons era at some point.
Oh, love that.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
You know,
what would you not?
Darrell had a great answer.
What wouldn't you
I'll
automate?
take a little slightly different take on it, which is fun, right? Like, I mean, isn't that going to be amazing when we're at this utopian society somewhere down the road and we're all just sitting on beaches all the time because all the automation and the AI is doing everything for us? Like, for all these people that sort of prognosticate that, oh my gosh, you know, all these industries are going to be radically disrupted in the next 2 years. I wish and hope it's that fast, because I certainly know I'm just going to be sitting on a beach letting all the automation and the AI take care of everything. I think we're a long way from that, but I hope that it never automates the fun, because I certainly want to be able to travel and go on vacation.
Yeah, certainly. You know, I think we're all agreed on that front for sure. Well, listen, guys, it's been great to talk with both of you. Darrell, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. Please, ladies and gentlemen, keep an eye on these guys. Keep an eye on Alvaria and what they're doing. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening today to Generation AI. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Generation AI,
Automating Better Business,
a show from LivePerson.
Never miss an episode by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. Please give us a rating, leave a comment, and share the episodes you love. Until next time.